Hello, everybody. This is Gregory Shavers. This presentation is for my Chinese and my Chinese and communication class for mass media and Chinese society. The title is called Chinese Communist Party, Internet Censorship, and Social Currency Policies by Gregory Shavers. Gregory Shavers Jr., actually. Just a forewarning, if I do yawn a little bit, I'm just a little bit tired, so if you could just bear with me, I definitely appreciate it. Ooh, excuse me. All right, so let's start from the beginning. So China is a very old society. I think it's about 2 or 3 thousand years old. So it's pretty old. I want to get into the history of China and talk about the policies that were implemented before we talk about this, the current things that they're doing with artificial intelligence and all the tracking and the camera systems and all that. So I just want to give you a brief history lesson before we get into all of that. All right, we have to start with the Chinese Civil War. After the Civil War in 1949, technology and science was the main driving force for the socialist movement in China. By 1978, China was slowly becoming a market socialist society. The Chinese Communist Party wanted to achieve wealth, power, and international status. The CCP defined their ideology as revolutionary, altru. I'm sorry, I'm not really quite sure. I always keep forgetting how to pronounce this word. Um, Pretty much this means which means research and national defense and economic growth. One day I'm going to learn how to pronounce this word. While Mao Zedong was in power, science and technology was unstable, much like the government in China during Mao's leadership. Mao's decision caused great fluctuations of how technology was going to be used in Chinese society. Uh, there were there was two approaches to handling technology in China: the technocratic way and the radical Maoist mass technology approach. Both ideas were totalitarian in nature. Naturally, the Mao approach was chosen, but it was very disastrous for the country of China. All right, so math science. I'm sorry, don't know why. I don't know why it's been doing that. I'm gonna have to read it from here because it keeps going to the next slide. Math science. Maoist math science approach was entirely based on political ideology and not technical ability. Mao's thought Miles thought believed that a few expert control of this technology was bad for the socialist movement. The ideological goal of the CCP was to integrate a theory with practice and to liberate peasants from automation, i.e., machines. The CCP wanted to eliminate social status. Their goal was to remove the lines between mental and physical work. The mass science system wanted the peasants to be the creator of the technology and not some scientists in a laboratory. Mao thought wanted the workers to create technology through his own experience. CCP agenda was also rejected any type of foreign technology because they believed this was some form of imperialism and elitism. Being an expert of a particular technology was considered foolish and even evil. Better to be read than an expert was a slogan often used during the Maoist time. It's very interesting times people were living in. All right, I can go to the next slide. I don't know why it goes to the next slide so quickly. Cultural Revolution. Cultural Revolution created even more instability toward traditional science and technology within China. The party attacked academic authorities who opposed the party and the socialist movement. This drove out professors and teachers out of academia, which caused the greatest migration of science and technology out of China. Only a few nuclear scientists were spared during the revolution. All scientific work stopped in China during 1966 through 1969. Many scientists were attacked and killed by the Red Guard and worker rebels. Many of them were sent to re-education camps by the peasants. Things didn't return moderately normal until 1969 when Mao ordered the Red Guard to stand down. As we continue in the Cultural Revolution was somewhat replaced with a designing revolution in 1964. The propaganda campaign used thought of Mao Zedong to overcome subjectivism, dogmatism, bourgeois individualism, and designing ideology and designing methods. China wanted to create its own technological industry. The revolution wanted to give the masses a greater role in science and technology. When the Cultural Revolution ended in 1976, when Mao Zedong passed away, the state of technology improved. However, the CCP was not impressed with the results. A lot of people left China during that time. Went to the U.S., went to Australia, went to Europe, went to Canada. I have like one or two Chinese friends whose parents, no, their grandparents left. So interesting, very very interesting. So now we have to get into Chinese policy making and how China approaches not just the technology, but just the entire internet. All right, Chinese policy making. Cyberspace has always been a top policy within China. The ability to block foreign media has been a powerful tool for the Chinese. One of its projects to help achieve this goal is the Great Firewall. I think we all know about the Great Firewall. It just pretty much blocks all foreign websites and only allow websites that they want their users to see. China has its own internet secured since the 1990s when Xi Jinping took power. It started to promote its internet policies on a global stage. It wanted to reshape global discourse of cyber governance. China wanted to promote its own internet values and to challenge powers in the West like the United States. This includes traditional international organizations, private entities, and current states. China has sought, for example, to participate in reform the internet, cooperation for assigned names and numbers. The U.S.-based host nonprofit organization that manages and maintains the internet namespace. China hosted the ECCE meeting in 2002 and 2013, and Chinese internet giants such as Alibaba, Tencent, and the Ministry of Industrial and Information Technology attended. The Internet Society China have participated are actively in affairs in the multi-stakeholder that disrupts the ICC and activities and networks. Pretty much, they participate in a lot of the organization's day-to-day operations. They were even able to uh, get the U.S. government to actually drop out of the ICA, in even though it's in the United States. It's very, very, very odd how China was able to use that soft power to influence the naming of the internet, which is kind of a big deal. More Chinese policy making. Xi Jinping thought the idea of the internet sovereignty of a joke, thought of it as a joke. He believed it was nothing more of third world countries and a few elite countries making all the rules. Even though this was never even though this never really caused any real policy proposal, it set the tone of how China will run its internet within its own borders. China believes it should seek to protect and promote its own internet to the dissatisfaction of countries in the West. Now we need to get to the social credit system, the controversy that's been all over the news. All right, what is the social credit system? Unveiled in 2014, Unveiled in a 2014 plan, pieces of the system is already in place, and the Chinese government appears to be targeting a 2020 goal to get the rest of the system in place. Though that's less of a deadline and instead marks the end of planning period, says Samantha Hoffman, non-resident fellow, Australian Strategy Policy Institutions. The plan was released in 2014 and was a target completion date of a plan is 2020. There's a lot of confusion on exactly what the social credit system is. There's actually two credit systems, one operated by the local government and the other operated by private companies. One private, uh, one private that the social credit system, one private company that the social credit system has is the Financial Zine Credit, also known as Sesame Credit. This company was sprung out of the tech giant Alibaba. The Sesame Credit uses shopping habits and other data to give credit style score. The system is an opt-in system. There is no single nationality coordinated system, Werble says, and the pilot that do do exist don't have all the work in the same. They all don't work in the same. Ant Financial Sesame Credit often gets mixed with the government system, even though these systems are two separate systems. To make things even more confusing, the data collected by this company is expected to be turned over to the government. Some of the data is already turned over to the government with consent. Wink, wink. This leads to misunderstanding what the social credit system is. Actually, is notes. Actually is notes Olberry. What happened is some of the media took the private pilots like Sesame Credit and presented it as the social credit system, says she says. It's not officially part of the system and doesn't have a license. So basically there's just a lot of confusion on what the system is. So why is China building this system? The reason why the system is in place is to build trust with the people. The lack of trust and compassion within China is very low. For example, China has had many food quality scandals, pollution, and not paying employees. That's a big thing in China. However, the system can be used to force laws. The focal point of the system is to punish companies within China that does bad behavior. The system can be used to build alternative means of financial credit. Unlike Western countries, many Chinese people live in rural country. Very few have traditional means of credit. The credit system can be a tool to remove this barrier. Some people are not buying it. In one quote, solving problems was the real goal. If solving problems was the real goal, the CCP would not need social credit to do it. China's social credit system is a state-driven program designed to do one thing: uphold and expand the Chinese Communist power. And we get to the power, the reason, the thing that powers the system, artificial intelligence, that big technology that no one really knows how to use. So they want to make a surveillance state. In some cities, cameras scan train stations for China's most wanted. Billboard side displays show the faces of jaywalkers and a list of names of people who don't pay their debts. Facial recognition scanners guard the entrance to housing complexes. Already, China has an estimated over 200 million surveillance cameras, 4 times as many as the United States. Such efforts supplement other systems that track internet use and communication. Hotels, hotel stays, trains, planes, trips, and even car travel, and in some places. So, China is a big surveillance state. They're using artificial intelligence in these cameras to pretty much track its citizens. Uh, some places are further along than others. Invasive mass surveillance software has been set up in the West to track members of the the Uyghur Muslim minority and map their relations with friends and family according to the software. This potential this is potentially a totally new way for the government to manage the economy and society, said Martin Schwarzenbaum, a fellow at the Peter Institution of International Economics. The goal is augmented governance, he added. So they want to make an algorithm to be able to control the government This goes back to Mao Zedong's approach of using technology to push the party and to uphold party values. So it's actually meeting what the party wants. This technology is currently keeping track of 11 million Chinese Uyghurs by insider sources of the system. The system was evaluated by the New York Times and is showing AI companies are making these systems. Chinese authorities already maintain a vast surveillance net, including tracking people's DNA. In western regions of uh, Xinjiang, which many Uyghurs call home, but the scope of the new system previously unreported extends that monitoring into many other corners of the country. So pretty much people they're monitoring, they're trying to monitor pretty much everything. From a technological standpoint, using algorithms to label people based on race or ethnicity has become a are becoming relatively easy. Companies like IBM advertise software that can sort people into broader groups. China is doing a little bit different, but China has broken new ground by identifying one ethnic group of law enforcement purpose. One Chinese startup called CloudWalk outlined a sample experience in marketing its own surveillance system. The technology said could have recognized sensitive groups of people, like racial bias. Chinese technology is vastly different from Western countries. Most of facial recognition technology uses options like skin tone and face shapes. This system then must tell the users to categorize the person like their race and ethnicity. With the help of startups, they've been able to do automatically. It's something that seems shockingly coming from the United States, where there is most likely racism built into our algorithmic decision making, but not in an overt way like this, said Jennifer Lynch, surveillance litigation director of Electronic Frontier Foundation. They are not a system designed to identify someone as African American, for example. How does this works? Uh, this is how this works, which is using machine learning. Machine learning is a scientific study of algorithms and statistical models that computer systems use in order to perform a specific task effectively without explicit instructions, relying on patterns and interfere instead. Engineers feed data to artificial intelligence systems to train them to recognize patterns or traits. In the case of profiling, they would have provided thousands of labeled images of both Uyghurs and non-Uyghurs that would help generate a function to distinguish ethnic groups. They're even scanning images. And this is a quote, well, part of a quote. Our database is generated by YouTube software reviewed by the Times show how the police in the city of Xinjiang use software running on cameras to attempt to identify residents more than 500,000 times over about a month, beginning in the mid of February. Included in the code alongside tags like Reach Gender and Reach Sunglass was Uyghur, not really quite sure what that means, which returned a 1 if the software believed it had found a Uyghur. Within half a million identifications, the cameras attempt to record the software guessed it saw Uyghurs of 2,834,000 times. Images stored alongside the entry would allow the police to double check. All right, but there is some hope. People have been complaining about this. There was something similar like this called the Green Dam. This was pretty much software that tracked pretty much everybody's computer. I'll get into that right now. Criticism published editors and new Chinese newspapers and others and have used less critical words government decision to implement the Green Dam. So pretty much the Green Dam was, like I said, was a piece of software that was installed on all personal computers. Every computer that was going to be made in China had to have this software. It allowed the CCP to track every single citizen and their internet behaviors. There was a lot of pushback on this. Um, for example, in this new paper, they said they often choose less politically sensitive words such as not acting as the people's parent or parental love. These articles begin with supporting government justification to implementation of Green Dam censorship to protect minors from pornographic and harmful content. So even though there's a lot of pushback, a lot of people don't want to push the party to the point of them just saying, "Oh, you're not a part of the party." China is very one-dimensional. China goes around with the people go with the crowd. They don't go against the crowd. That's very dangerous in China. This is the software. Despite government arguments in justifying the censorware, deployment programs may have perceived that the sole purpose of installing the Green Dame censorware or to monitor internet connected and words typed on the computer. Politically undesirable censored words are blocked and optionally reported to the Chinese government. Chinese intellects and legal professors have also filed complaints to the State Council and Antitrust Commission claiming MIT violated antitrust laws enforcing the Green Dam upon Chinese internet users, demanding a legal and transparent process in promoting this censor warfare project, and also founded another blog. So people have been pushing about these overreaching censorship, which could happen with this new Chinese social credit system. Maybe not the camera, but at least the social credit system. Um, One blog and newspaper article particularly pinpointed the awkward situation of spending taxpayer money to install a software program to monitor their own online behavior. If the internet users can choose to uninstall the Green Name from their computers. This led to thousands of dollars lost to the National Treasury. One article criticized that the government should take steps to consider the public opinion in making this decision. So there is some type of reform, and people are complaining about this because it doesn't make sense because it's just wasting taxpayer dollars. Even Xi Jinping had said something to say about this. President Xi Jinping called a greater tolerance of well interconnected criticism online of the authorities in China have resulted with much irony and official censoring reaction to his comments on social media. So even China, even they're censoring the president. Like Chinese propaganda is actually censoring the president, and like he, was able to like override the Constitution. So it's it's a lot of government bureaucracy. Ding said at a forum of cybersecurity on Tuesday that officials should heed public opinions online and show internet user greater tolerance. He also plans to take online criticism towards the Communist Party, the government, and officials on board as long as it is well intentional, regardless how unpleasant it was to hear. Now, let's talk about conclusion. Um, I think that I don't think China will ever be a democratic society. I just think that's just not how they work and operate. I do think they should probably be more open to different Western ideas, just like we should be open to more um, national and society ideas to help, make society better. I mean, one thing I will for us love to do is have some type of gun reform or some type of like drug policy instead of just either, you know, just either just throwing people in jail or, for drugs or just taking all the guns. I mean, there should be some type of push by the government to help change a society, to help change society. China can take that approach when it comes to like its citizens. Like you won't know what's wrong until the other party tells you. So I think they should listen to their citizens more and not push so much propaganda that people just don't want to speak up about it. All right, these are my sources. I definitely enjoy this class. It's been a pleasure. This is actually my last class. I will be getting my degree, so I'm very, very happy about that. I definitely appreciate you, Professor, for having me. And yeah, hope you enjoy the presentation. Bye now.